Thank you, Honorable Mutunga. Honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that this House adopts the joint report of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning and the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock on its consideration of the memorandum by the National Treasury and Economic Planning on action plans to revive and commercialize state-owned sugar companies, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 14 September 2023. Justice Kemei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity you've given me so that I can also add my voice on the memorandum from the Treasury. From the onset, Mr. Speaker, I must mention that I've been in the sugar industry for a fairly long time. And when we made visits to the sugar factories in Western Kenya and parts of Coast Province, Mr. Speaker, the mills that we used to consider as economic hubs are a pale shadow of themselves, Mr. Speaker. From the onset, Mr. Speaker, I must mention that cane growing is one of the richest economic activities in the whole world. When you consider all crops, Mr. Speaker, it is macadamia which leads in terms of earnings, followed by avocado, and the third one is sugarcane. However, Mr. Speaker, these riches have not gone to our farmers in this country, basically because of a number of reasons. Reason number one, Mr. Speaker, is that the processing facilities in the mills that we have in this country has not been good. The efficiency levels are very low, and therefore the conversion ratio of cane to sugar has been extremely low. While countries, Mr. Speaker, like Brazil, convert 9 tons of cane to 1 ton of sugar, in this country we are doing as much as 20 tons of cane for 1 ton of sugar. That, Mr. Speaker, cannot be an economic activity. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, the efficiency in the field is equally very poor. The cane that we grow ends up in the mills after 3 or 4, 5 days. The sucrose content in that cane has gone down. And Mr. Speaker, we do not expect the mills to be able to process the cane and lead to better recoveries. Mr. Speaker, when we look at the sugar industry in this country, we are one of the highest cost producers in the whole world. Sugar is produced at about $700 per metric ton in Kenya, while in countries like Brazil, the cost of production is in the range of $300 per metric ton. When you come to the Comesa region, Mr. Speaker, there are countries like Zambia, countries like Swaziland, which produce sugar at about $400 per metric ton. We must strive, Mr. Speaker, to be an efficient producer of sugar as a nation. Mr. Speaker, we consume 1 million metric tons of sugar, and what we produce is about 700,000 metric tons. Mr. Speaker, that deficit of 300 metric tons has been making this country to spend its meager dollar resources in terms of importation of sugar. Mr. Speaker, we spoke to the farmers, and we must be true to them. And they had said, Mr. Speaker, they would follow us until when we are discussing this issue in Parliament. One of the most emotive issues, Mr. Speaker, has been the land issue. And they said, Mr. Speaker, when the lease model is implemented by the government, land that initially belonged to our people must revert back to their original owners. Mr. Speaker, I believe that the committee, the joint committee, has given due regard to this, so that at the end of the expiry period of 20 years or so, Mr. Speaker, the land should be able to revert back to the original owners. Mr. Speaker, we want as a country to be able to give the private sector the ability to run the cane industry such that it is meaningful to our people. But as we do that, Mr. Speaker, we need to prepare our farmers so that at the end of the day, they should be able to carry on as actual owners of the mills that we have in this country. Mr. Speaker, they gave us the model of Kenya Tea Development as agency, which they say over time, Mr. Speaker, they should be able to man the mills themselves. And finally, Mr. Speaker, we've been sitting on knowledge from our research institution, the Kenya Research Institute. That institute has developed varieties with a very high sucrose content, with a very high pollen cane, Mr. Speaker, that we should be able to get our farmers to grow them. And finally, Mr. Speaker, in terms of sharing the proceeds between the farm and the mills, the formula that is provided by Kenya Research Institute is the best way in which we'll make our farmers adopt better sucrose content cane and earn a better living out of them. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I support the memorandum. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable members, I want to give you direction as follows.